The Medicis were one of the most important figures in Italy from the 14th to the 18th century. They ruled the Italian city-state Florence, building their wealth and power through banking and strategic marriages. Through generations, they patronized innovative and momentous artists and commissioned some of the most prominent art and architecture, helping transform Florence and by extension Italy into the focal point of the Renaissance. Soon, violence and disorder grew in Italian city-states as factions began feuding for power and control. In 1393, Giovanni de' Medici used the chaos as an opportunity to start his own bank. Giovanni used the bank to expand the family's wealth, and he strategically married off family members into prestigious families to develop connections and political power. Giovanni wanted to boost civil life and display the Medici wealth, so he commissioned the construction of the old sacristy, which began in 1421 by Brunelleschi. It was important to Giovanni to build a section of the San Lorenzo chapel because the other wealthy families in Florence were contributing to the reconstruction of the building. Giovanni hired Filippo Brunelleschi to build the old sacristy. Brunelleschi studied ancient Roman Greek architecture and art that is seen throughout the old sacristy. The building is rational and geometrically perfect, comprising of circles and squares. It consists of a main area and an altar or chapel, both of which are circle-square plan and covered by circular domes rising from the penitentives in the corner. The fluted pilasters are decorative, shallow, flattened-out columns attached to the wall and serve no functional purpose. The entablatures divide the space into two equal horizontal zones. Eventually, it became Giovanni and his wife's burial site. After Giovanni died, Cosimo, Giovanni's son, commissioned artists like Donatello to add decorative pieces like the bronze doors and relief panels. Cosimo was skilled and strategic, eventually increasing the family's political control. He built connections and networks through bank and gained control through questionable methods like buying votes and utilizing his private army to enforce his power. Cosimo's grandson, Lorenzo, was focused on the arts and politics. Lorenzo commissioned many pieces of art and architecture, and spread his love of the arts onto his own sons. With the family's love of art, Florence transformed into the center of the Renaissance and turned into the city we know today. In the 1500s, the new sacristy was commissioned. The new sacristy in the funerary chapel, a burial site for the Medici. Michelangelo was commissioned by Pope Clement VII, a Medici. Michelangelo died before he could finish a chapel, so the final vision for the chapel is unknown. The funerary shape is similar to a square, has a square apse where the altar is, has a dome, and is much taller than wide or long. The architecture inside gives a sense of the entrapment and focuses on the purgatory. Symbols of the purgatory can be seen throughout the chapel, but the most distinct one is on the walls. There are 3 levels on the walls of the funerary, and each level represents something. The bottom level represents earth because it was big and dense. The middle layer represents purgatory because it serves a link between earth and heaven. The top level represents heaven because it consists of circles and semicircles, which were seen as perfect shapes that represented heaven. These were put in the funerary because there could be a possibility of resurrection or salvation. As the years progressed, the Medici were in and out of power as different rival groups contested their rule. Eventually in 1737, the Medici line ended when Gian Gastone died without an heir. But the Medici left a large impact throughout Europe, producing 4 popes, and Catherine de' Medici married into the French royal family. It contested amongst historians whether the Medici were a positive influence on the city of Florence. Some argue the Medicis lead to the end of the Florentine Republic by consolidating political and papal power and ultimately restricting and sabotaging Florentine liberty. Others argue the Medici brought order and tranquility to a factional Florence, turning it into an independent political power. Florence would not be the same city without the Medici, especially when considering their contribution to the humanities, art, and learning. They patronized most of the key figures in the Renaissance, like Galileo, Michelangelo, Brunelleschi, and Donatello. They commissioned the Sistine Chapel ceiling, presentation of the portrait of Maria de' Medici, and the Uffizi Gallery. They used to hold public entertainment like jousts and soccers in the piazza that's still a tradition carried on today. They helped develop the idea of a philanthropy. The Medici created architecture and art that would ultimately benefit all of Florence. The last of the line, Anna Maria, donated all the art to the city of Florence under the condition that it never leaves the city. The Medici transformed Florence into a valuable hub of art.